So this, I wanted for this to be just kind of a wrap up meeting, a good, nice, fun wrap up meeting for us after all of the hard work and all of the contributions that you've all been making towards getting this up and running. Um, we appreciate you. I know that probably bugged some of y'all with all the messages and emails to get this going. But it's because you kind of look around right now and you see everything that's going on. And it felt like with all of the resources, with all the pools of resources, with all the talent that's at the table, I felt like this is something that really needed to come to fruition. If nothing else, just to get just to kind of get this group of like minds together to take some next practical steps. So just in wrapping up, I wanted to first off, Justin and Haley, y'all are students in getting this going as well. So I really do, it's awesome that y'all are willing to, towards the end of a semester, with finals and projects and everything else that was also going to, and Fernando, you're actually a student as well. But you took the time and effort to make this happen. So I wanted to ask you, why did you feel, with all that was already going on, why did you feel that this was something that was, I guess, worth your time and effort to get involved with?
Well, this was right up my alley. Like whenever you reached out to me, I was very pleased to be included on a project like this, and to try something new. So with the production of everything and like learning the different culture, like the I can't pronounce any of the names of the of what I've learned, but it was a really neat experience and trying new foods and um, it was just really cool. It sounded like a great project, and it's seemed like it was worth my time to invest in.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And well, I mean, definitely, I feel like you all are the future. Young young people in general, especially students. I feel like you all are the ones that are gonna, it's historically students have been the ones that were at the forefront of a lot of movements, a lot of social justice, civil rights movements, and you have the youth, you have the energy, and you have the kind of the mindset and drive to make these things happen. So that's why I felt it was really important for you all to get involved, and I'm grateful, especially in learning that the steps that you're taking with the Black Student Union at St. Mary's, just to make sure that it's something that produces like a substantial impact in the community. It's not just another dance or a car wash, but y'all are taking steps to make sure that there's some real change, as far as y'all can help produce in the community. So, how about you, Justin? What was it for you that made you willing to get involved?
So really, it's just about the history of both cultures and the places that we visited over the past few weeks. It really just like getting hands on with that and making sure that we continue to educate our generation, and the generations to come. That way, we don't lose sight of what's really important and what's you know for us to lose sight. Like, okay, there's something that we need to pretty much address, and which is like which is you know bringing to light our cultures and how we got to where we are now. Pretty much, like I said, just the history is so important to keep on reminding the future generations. That way we can have something to appreciate, from the previous generation. And even from that, like learning our history, we can think about more things. We can branch off of those things that our previous generation has already established for us, um, for the future.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what made me get really involved, is making sure that everybody knows and everybody's well educated with both cultures, and pretty much just get like a get an idea of what we should do next.
Yeah. That's good. That's and I know for us when we had a kind of a feel for, well, I grew up really not knowing what Carter G. Woodson's contributions were fully, even though there was a park right around the corner from my home. And I definitely really hadn't heard much of Renato Constantino before this. Those things weren't taught very readily available in school. So we knew about, we started finding out about the Carter G. Woodson and Renato Constantino connection just from talking back and forth about, our experiences coming up. And there was a tie that developed there. So we're starting with that, but just in, pulling on that thread, it took us down a journey where we learned a lot more about just all the collaborations and all the solidarity between Asian and African descent people. Um, so for me, that's been a really cool takeaway, just to know, like, not only is, like you said, it's history for sure. We need to um, pass on the history, but it seems like they also both, Renato and Carter G. Woodson, they and several others left, breadcrumbs. They left also like blueprints for what we can do, like practical steps that we can take. So that's one thing that it's, kind of we've taken away from this. What's something that you all have taken away from this? Like, what's this experience meant for you all?
Just to build off what's been said, the collaboration part has been really important, and that has stuck out to me a lot. Like um, to see us come together, like from St. Mary's and UTSA, and then the other parts of the community that I didn't even know existed until now. Um, it's teaching me a lot about why it's important to build off of what has already been established, like Justin said. So making Juneteenth like more important, like actually celebrating it and bringing it to the forefront, as well as like the Filipino Freedom Day. Yeah, that's really important, to just come together and really talk about it and look at the history, because we're bound to repeat it if we don't. So yeah, it's been a really unique experience. I really enjoyed it.
I believe Haley pretty much hit the nail right there. It's all about unity. Unity creates so many ways for people to learn, to embrace each other, and that's just a wonderful thing. As we live in a society now where we're constantly fighting for unity. Um, doing this project really allows us to do do so much more in a much in a way where we could just really blaze a trail for the upcoming generation. And I'm really glad to be a part of this. Main thing, like, unity is the most important part um, that plays in this project.
Well, I'm gonna harp on it. Like, I keep going back to saying that, Justin, you, Haley, um, Fernando as well, and y'all are, the next generation for us, like, as far as we're concerned. And I think that a lot of times we need to make sure that when we say, if I'm speaking on behalf of institutions and organizations, and we say that we want to get more youth involvement, we want to get the young people involved. I think it has to be more than just words. I think it has to be more than something we're doing just in a token action for photo ops. But then when it comes to having the young people there, we're not really putting you all in positions like at the table, at the decision-making table. I think what we've got to do is make sure that we give you all the tools that you need in terms of history, wisdom that we can pass down from age, things like that, resources, and then get out of y'all's way, and so that you can, do what you need to do with your ideas and your your vision. Um, so with that being said, based off of these past couple weeks, these past months, what are some next steps that y'all would like to see? Like, where would you like to see this go from this point? What's some things you'd like to see?
I would say more collaboration. I know it's just us right now, but I would love to see St. Mary's and UTSA really collaborate a lot more and be more hands-on. Because that's really how we get the word going around. Is the more people, the better. Again, unity. That's what brings in um, that goal right there. That's how that goal can be established and reached, is if we just unite for the common goal of getting everybody to know the background and the history, and to keep forging on to a better future for both cultures.
Yeah, I completely agree. The connections that I've made um, during like all of the interactions we've had are like, extremely valuable. So I'm definitely gonna reach out to Mr. and Mrs. G's to like have like another like event there or something like that, since she's already the one of the daughters is already familiar with the Black Student Union at St. Mary's. And then of course, like now that I know Justin, I'm gonna definitely be reaching out to you so we can collaborate on events. Um, but yeah, just to continue with the fantastic communication that's going on. I know you said that there are too many text messages, but I think the more the better, just so we all know what's going on. Um, so yeah, it's been like it's great. I just think that we need to continue doing what we're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, and like I said, I have ideas, and at the same time, I definitely, um, it's not something that I say in passing when I say that I want you all to be, the kind of the thought leaders on how we move forward. So I'll pitch ideas to you, just because we're all part of the same team and same collab, and then what we do with that, it will all, you'll have a voice and have a say in how we move forward. But I'd love to see like a year from now, we're meeting and we're talking about how many schools in Guiwan the Filipino Student Association has solarized and made sustainable, or how many Black-owned businesses here in San Antonio that the Black Student Union has helped recover from the pandemic. Because I know that a lot of well, and Red was talking about this. Last time we spoke, is talking about education, how our own agenda, our own history, things like that have been, brought down to zero sum, just so that we can perpetuate westernized agendas and things like that. So I'd love to see us use our educational tools and platforms to make practical impacts within our communities. Um, so but I know I haven't paid for the upgrade on Zoom. I know we've got a limited amount of time. So I wanted to make sure that we also heard from Red as Renato Constantino's grandson, and also the director of, for the Institute of Climate and Sustainable Cities. I wanted to make sure that we heard from him, and also from Fernando, who's in representation of Carter G. Woodson, and then see Justin and Haley if you had questions for them, the Q&A session after that. So Red, if you, I'd like to introduce Red.
Thanks, Rich. Happy Juneteenth, first of all, to Justin and Haley as well. We were chatting earlier with Fernando and Emmy and Rich, and had the pleasure of seeing them a week earlier. I think all I can say right now is that as your country celebrates Juneteenth and also marks in the process the importance of Black History Month. I'd also say that all that those things that we celebrate, it's an important occasion to also remind you that Black history um, has Asian branches and has Asian roots. And that recognition and understanding of that only makes us makes things more interesting. Um, or the front and the back end of what brings us together with Carter Woodson and my grandfather's work is really the past that is tied to yours and to mine. I think around 1897 or 1896, one of the U.S. senators, as they were preparing for the invasion of the Philippines, which eventually would see Mr. Woodson coming over as part of the forces. One of the senators, uh, uh, his name is Albert Beveridge, actually gave a couple of speeches. Uh, you know, and you can't help but see how these links take place. I'd like to quote one of his a couple of his words. Um, Before they went here, he was arguing, and I quote: "Would not the people of the Philippines prefer the just, humane, civilizing government of this U.S. republic to the savage, bloody rule of pillage and extortion from which we have rescued them?" This was before they went over, and you can notice from the quote that they're acting as liberators. In a subsequent address, I think in 1898, Beveridge shared his views again with higher clarity. And I quote: "It is elemental. It is racial. The American cause in the Philippines is nothing less than that of the English-speaking and Teutonic peoples, whom God had prepared for 1,000 years to become the master organizers of the world and possessors of what he called the blood of government." And in 1900, Rich, he was even more explicit when we were already occupied by the US. "The Philippines is ours forever," he said, "territory belonging to the US, and just beyond the Philippines are China's illimitable markets. We will not retreat from either. We will not repudiate our duty in the archipelago. We will not abandon our opportunity in the Orient. We will not renounce our part in the mission of our race, trustee under God of the civilization of the world. This is a task worthy of our strength. Thanksgiving to Almighty God that He has marked us as His chosen people. The Philippines gives us a base to all at the door of all of the East." Um, Unquote. And that's a pretty remarkable start that eventually saw Mr. Woodson come over and then get, as Fernando can tell you, get so much of, gain so much of the experience that at some point things got distilled and the chemistry of both histories clashing. He came to lead a lot of what the good parts of the US is today. Um, I guess that's how I'd connect this to our June 12th discussion. And there's a lot more that's interesting, but I'll stop there for now.
Yeah, what's interesting is that he was one of the teachers that were sent over there to teach in the Philippines, and I think he was, and I don't think he understood, quite frankly, what his role was going to be. And then I think once he realized and saw the similarities in the colonization of their education system over there and how it fares over here, he realized that he wasn't part of the solution. He was actually part of the problem, because he was sent over there to continue the colonization, you know. And so you kind of look at the role that he played once he came back, and because now he's known as the father of Black history. He is known as the father of African American history. That is what he's known as. But if you read anything that pertains to his biography, whether it's on the back of his books, or if you actually seek out information about him, they always mention him going to the Philippines as it's like a footnote, not really something that's really significant. They kind of more so focus on the work that he did sort of after, and because the miseducation of the Negro wouldn't emerge for another 30 plus years, because as he goes over there, he comes back, and he makes strides to advocate for the study of African American history. He helped establish Negro History Week in 1926 that eventually would become Black History Month. And one of the things that is significant about that whole relationship with that is that, again, you don't really study that, or that's not really something that is taught, which kind of is irony in of itself, so so it is interesting to see the connection between that, especially with Costantino's eventual work that will come later, and the connection between the two holidays, and I think it's something that certainly as we get, because I think what we've seen in the last couple of weeks is indicative of that. I think education is clashing more so with policy. There are definitely a lot of tactics at work that are making it to where education is sort of like black and white. There's no gray in between. And it's at a point where they're policing everything that's being taught, from books to the curriculum. And it's gotten to a point where sort of education outside the classroom not only is deemed more valuable, but it's also deemed more human, because it's not something that is being forced or shoved down someone's throat. What you experience is what you experience. That's the nature. And actually, there are a lot of education scholars that will tell you that your experience is in fact education. What you learn outside of what you were taught is actually something that will bring you value, if not more value than what you're taught. So I think what will be interesting to see over the next decade or two, probably, over the next few years, decade or two, is that there'll be a huge power struggle that I think went on long before, Whitson's time or Costantino's time. But I think the remnants of that started it back then will be reemerging now, which will then, and that's kind of another argument too about history, is that it's kind of it reemerges in different ways. It goes away and then it pops up in different ways. And, so I think what'll be interesting is what will be the latest emergence coming up now. That'll be interesting to see.
Do you think there's a way we could prevent another wave? Like what you just said is kind of like that quote, history repeats itself. Like while I was listening to you, I believe to that question that I just asked, like, what do you think about this? Maybe like the dedication in educating, consistently educating the generation now. Do you think that will stop any possible waves?
I do. I think so, because again, it's when you educate a community and you give them the tools to educate themselves, it can be perpetual. But I also think that if we were to look at education as a hierarchy, we're not anywhere near at the top. There's people, like, there are policymakers who, let's face it, don't have a PhD in education, have never been a teacher, but they are making decisions about what is being put in textbooks, what is being taught in classrooms. That seems crazy, but that's the truth. So it's like, what do we do? And the unfortunate thing is that system has been put in place, for a long period of time. So I think it starts, I mean, yes, granted, we need it at the level that we're at right now, but I also think that, action needs to be taken as far as like who will become the holders of those seats in the Board of Education, in the Texas Senate, in the Texas House of Representatives, because those are the individuals that will be making the decisions that will impact us and our kids and our grandkids and so on and so forth. We can do so much that we can do, and I honestly think it needs a little bit of both, right? It needs individuals that I think oftentimes people oftentimes view as, you know, if you're a teacher, it's like a lifelong career. Like, you know, you can't really pivot out of it. You kind of stay in it and you retire. But there's nothing wrong with pivoting out of it and going into education policy, because you yourself have that experience. You see what's in the classroom. You see what the students, you see what the students experience. But because your value is not, it's undervalued compared to someone who is a business person that happens to have connections that got them into the race and that got them into the seat, you know, that is undervalued, which I think, you know, that's where I think that, you know, because I think that's where a lot of the work has to be done. So I feel like a lot of, you know, it's a power game, and not only that, but, you know, they're looking at it from a economic standpoint. You know, what will generate the most revenue for me, or what will generate the most revenue for us? You know, what will have long lasting results, so on and so forth. So I think there can be work done definitely in the community, definitely at the education levels with students, you know, of all ages. But I also think, if not working in tandem with the policymakers, doing what you have to do to vote, and, you know, if they're not, and holding them accountable. If they're not doing what they need to be, what they need to do, vote them out, get rid of them.
I have to say, if I've learned anything from the past, like, it feels like just a really long year, but like 1.5 years, is that civic engagement is so important. You know, just like being involved in your community in like little ways or big ways. Like, and one of the most important things is voting, of course. But I definitely think that like the history repeating itself is definitely like a pendulum effect. Like it'll go back and forth for a while, but after a while it'll like kind of settle. So I think that's a really interesting question. I've been thinking about that for a long time.